Hey y'all, Friendly Neighborhood Steve here.
Grim here.
This is Symbiotic. We're going to go ahead, and today's discussion topic is going to be depression and how it applies to recovery and just depression in general. So I'm going to give it off to my co-host here. He's going to start us off. Go ahead, brother.
So depression, something that I think a lot of us struggle with, regardless of your diagnoses. Something that affects a large spectrum of factors in our lives. So I think that's a good topic for today. Where to start? I think a big one is just the general lack of motivation. I think is a big issue for a lot of people with that. I think it's also a lot of times the reason that people turn to things like drugs and alcohol as well. Especially if you're not medicated or if you don't have any kind of way to cope with that, like self-coping skills and whatever your methodology happens to be to deal with depression. But I think that there's definitely epidemic, so to speak, when it comes to that. I think I want to talk about a little bit maybe coping skills.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I think that would be a good direction to go with that. I think the first way to counteract especially if you're talking about the lack of motivation with depression, would be first place is your morning routine. Even if you don't wake up in the morning, even if you sleep till 1 p.m., just whenever you wake up, how you start the day is the standard that you set for the rest of the day, in my opinion, at least. I know that for myself, I struggle with depression. I'm diagnosed bipolar type 2, so it's something that I deal with quite a bit. Pretty open about it. So, but I recently did change. I recently tried a different routine in my own life that has substantially helped me. My diet. Started cutting sugar. Started getting the adequate amount of protein my body needs. Starting with the decisions that you make right out of bed. I only hit snooze twice instead of 4 times this morning. and I woke up, got up. It takes me a long time to wake up. I don't know about any of y'all, but I'm a deep sleeper, so a lot of that has to do with depression. So I struggle with grogginess and just general motivation in the mornings. And I noticed that when I make myself get up just a little bit, like one alarm sooner, and then I make that one decision different. Like, all right, instead of having a toaster strudel for the morning, I have a banana or something. Each one of those decisions compile into a standard, right? I love candy. I love candy. It was to the point where, like, I would eat just bags of candy a day, and recently I noticed, just telling you this morning, about how somebody bought me a bag of candy last night, and it was just a real small bag. I almost couldn't finish the thing. I was like, what is this? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? But that's a good thing. It means that it's working. It means that I've created a new baseline, a new standard for my day, and I feel better just right out the gate. And I think that's something that we can all do. Whether you struggle with depression or not. Even if you just want to get a little better mental clarity, you want to get a little better physically, health-wise. Like, I think it's a good practice. I don't know if you have anything that you want to
Yeah,
add
no,
to that.
for sure. Being in recovery we realized that like our lives were unmanageable. And I feel like a lot of that goes in hand with depression, because like, I myself have bipolar too, and I go through lows, and unfortunately those lows wreck my entire schedule. uh, I don't feel like getting out of bed, I don't feel like showering, I don't feel like eating, I don't feel like doing anything but lay there and be miserable. And so now, I force myself, no matter how I'm feeling, to get up, start the day off with a healthy breakfast, start out with some meditation, plan out my day, things like that, and as well as a gratitude list. It's not a bad idea to
Yeah.
be thankful for even the small things. Like I'm thankful for this beautiful view that we got around us. We're in downtown Reno, right in between downtown and the Idlewild Park, and it's such a serene place. We got the river behind us, and I think that that's a big thing myself, is surrounding myself with positive environment, people, places, and things. I have my brother here. um, we have our pack, which is just a group of guys who are like-minded like us, that want to stay sober and want to live a fulfilling life. So we've banded together as a pack. That way, when one of us starts falling, we can reel him back in and keep the pack strong. But as far as like depression goes, I like to think that I have somewhat my lows under a little bit of it's a little bit manageable. um, it sucks still, like it's always gonna suck. Lows suck, let's be honest. And but I force myself to get out of bed, I force myself to shower, I force myself to be grateful about something, create a gratitude list and stuff. And I force myself to do the things that like I like doing. So I like going for walks, I like working out, I like disc golf, I like going to the movies and stuff, I like laughing. So I will force myself into those situations, even though all I want to do is curl up into a ball and cry. I will not let my mental illness defeat me. I'm a fighter. I get back up. You're never gonna knock me out type of a deal when it comes to depression. When it comes to recovery, like I'm always going to get back up and keep fighting. Uh, so yeah, I think that leads me back to you, Grim. Like what do you do to get yourself out of those lows, out of those funks, and stuff like that?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the mental habits as well, because a lot of us don't always think about when we talk about routines. We don't always consider our pattern of thoughts
Right.
as a routine, but
Right.
they are. We're most humans are creatures of habit, and that's in each aspect of our lives, not just patterns of behavior, but patterns of thoughts. And so being aware of that, I think that was a wonderful point that you brought up. Thank you. Some things that I do in my routine, some simple stuff, like one of the things that I love to do, and I got the Santa Cruz shirt on, but is longboard. I love to longboard, right? It's one of my passions. I love to draw, right? But one of the things I do is like especially here in Reno, we have public transit quite readily available. But instead of taking the bus, I'll longboard places. It takes probably around the same amount of time, just because you have to wait for the bus, and the bus is sometimes late and all that fun hoopla. But it's just like a simple thing that gets me into an activity. And I don't like to say force, but I get what you mean. But like, I like to create I also like to create scenarios which put me in a position to do something I love when I wouldn't otherwise be motivated to do so.
Yeah, no, I don't mean force in a negative way.
No.
It's just I know that if I don't make myself get up, I know that showering's going to make me feel good. I know that going out and working out is going to make me feel good. I know that, being around positive and interesting, funny type people, things like that are going to get me out of this funk. So, like, I have to just pick myself up by my bootstraps and just keep on moving.
Right. When you're in a situation where you deal with and struggle with depression, putting yourselves into that situation is the challenge, right? A lot of times, like, once we're there, we're like, all right, like, we can enjoy a good conversation with somebody, and forget about the depression for a while, or we can, like with my longboard, it's my issue is always the starting point. It's always getting on the board, or getting the pencil to the paper when I'm drawing, or like going to the meeting to have those interactions and that fellowship with my brothers, and in recovery, and whatever the situation may be. It's always or getting up out of bed, just sitting up, like it's always that start part. And there's like a measure of will that you have to kind of muster up sometimes to make that happen. But I one thing that I did want to mention, because that in itself, for anyone who struggles with depression, knows that is a mountain to climb in itself. Just
Right,
that one
right.
activity, just that one step is a step over a mountain sometimes, and it's not like, it may be a seemingly small activity, but the mustering the motivation to do it and start it is a huge hurdle at times. And so, like, one thing I wanted to talk about was one method that I use to kind of help with that, right, is instead of, I call it compartmentalization, but that might not be the right term, so forgive me if that's incorrect. But it's basically, I take any task, even if that task is sitting up right in the morning, or just getting on my longboard, not even the first push, but like whatever it is, like even if it's just eating that banana, right? Small, I take that one thing and I break it up into sections, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So even if that elephant is just sitting up, right? Because sometimes that's freaking difficult, I don't know if you curse in this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's fucking difficult, bro. All right, it's fucking difficult. Opening my eyes, fucking difficult. Fucking sitting up, fucking difficult, right? It's a challenge, it's a hurdle, right? But sometimes you gotta break it up into small pieces. However you have to break it up, right? Because if I hear my alarm go off and I'm just like, okay, all I have to do is just keep my eyes open for 30 seconds. I don't have to get up. I don't have to sit up. All I gotta do, keep my eyes open for 30 seconds. Right? I don't even count the 30 seconds most of the time, if I'm being honest. But like, I just the act of motivating myself to keep my eyes open for 30 seconds sometimes is a good little start. And it's like, all right, well, we're up, we might as well sit up. We don't have to get up, just sit up, right? And then it's just segment your task into smaller, more palatable, more manageable bites. Sometimes helps with that too. And then each bite you take will eventually turn into a meal, and that meal will turn into a diet, and that diet will turn into a habit, and that habit will change your pattern of behavior. Right? That might not make the depression go away, because that's clinical, at least it is for me, but it will make it more manageable. And that would be another piece of advice that I like to throw in. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do pretty much the same thing. Like, honestly, when I open my eyes in the morning, like after my alarm goes off, I'll just sit there and vape for like 5 minutes. I'm not gonna lie, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's what I do is I just sit there and just puff on my vape and like, all right, like, what are we gonna do today? Like, what's our first step? Like, okay, what do you feel like having for breakfast? And it's
yeah.
a good 5 minutes of just myself. Like, I'm not moving, I'm not getting up or anything like that.
But you're
I'm
still being productive. You're still like
yeah.
getting your mind in the right state of for the action.
Right, absolutely. And it's a matter of, you know, always having momentum. You know what I mean? Like I'm always trying to push forward, and I'm trying to go and climb and climb and climb. And I feel like if I stall, I'm just gonna go downhill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I know what it's like to go backwards and backslide and stuff like that. And unfortunately, not only does that leave me in a deeper depression, but triggers and cravings start happening,
Yep.
and I am so much more susceptible to a reoccurrence of use. So I do my best to avoid things like that, and having that routine, especially in the morning,
Yeah.
is what kind of like that's the gas in my engine. That's what gets me started.
It's the pace car.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So and I have multiple things throughout the day that keep that momentum going, keeps putting gas in my car. I go to meetings, and then my spiritual and my recovery tank is full. That's super important to me, and also the people that are in those rooms are important to me, and I love being there. I love hearing how their day is, what their struggles are, and I love being able to have a place to where I can share my struggles, instead of just a therapy. I have my therapy once a week, and I'm able to get out a lot in an hour, but sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes and there's things that I'm very comfortable sharing with my therapist, and then there's certain things that I'm only comfortable sharing with like my brother here. Like there's stuff that like I need to unpack, and it's not necessarily because it's dark or anything like that. It's just like I want to talk to somebody directly that I can relate to, somebody that knows what I'm struggling with, instead of somebody who's paid to say who's never had an addiction problem or doesn't have mental disorders and stuff like that. I need to reach out to somebody who can tell me, yeah, dude, I was just like that last week, last month, last 3 months, something like that, to make me feel like, dude, I'm not alone. And that's something I can't stress more to you guys, is like, you're not alone, so don't do it alone. There's help out there, there's people out there that want to see you flourish and stuff like that, and like, I see you, I believe in you, I'm proud of you. Keep on trucking, because you're crushing it. You know what I mean?
And take your small wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Like opening your eyes in the morning is a win.
Yeah.
Okay, you're still here. You're still breathing, right? We may have our problems, but we have an opportunity to handle it. And it's the whole reason that we have this podcast, is to hopefully reach out to those people who can relate,
Yeah.
who are struggling with things that we've struggled with, or have struggled with things that we've struggled with, and maybe something that we say in here might help somebody who's still struggling. And that's the whole point of this.
That is the whole point of this, is to, if we could help one person, doesn't matter how many episodes we put out, if we could just help one person, then this was totally worth our time. And haters are gonna hate and stuff like that, and there's gonna be people that disagree with us, but like, that's they're totally, their opinion is fair, and they're entitled to their opinion. Are they entitled to share it? No. So we're probably gonna get some feedback and probably talk a little shit, but what are you gonna do?
And if you feel compelled to say something, we'd be happy to hear from you.
yeah, we totally want to hear, anybody that's watching this video, we want to hear from you. uh we want to know what you're going through. Feel free to reach out to us and tell us about your day, tell us what you're struggling with, because like, we're here for you. Not only, Friendly Neighborhood Steve and Grim here, but also, our other co-host Shadow, who's not here today. We all live to help people.
We fucking give a shit.
We do.
Okay?
We
really
honestly do.
The whole point of this is because we give a shit.
Right.
And so, don't be shy.
Don't be shy. So back to the topic.
Sorry.
No. Don't trip, brother. A lot of my whole life I've been struggling with this, and unfortunately, growing up, my folks kind of denied. They wanted a normal kid, so like,
What's that?
they wanted to not have an anxious kid, not have an autistic kid, not have a depressed kid. They just wanted like their baseball player, football player, academic scholar. And I just wasn't that. I was different. And so I didn't know how to deal, and I never understood why I was sad all the time. And of course, like, there's a difference between depression and sadness, but as a child, you don't know that. To me, I was just sad all the time, and I was angry, and I didn't like life. I ended up, my first attempt at, harming myself was at 9 years old. Then proceeded by 12, which proceeded to 15, and luckily that was the last time that I ever tried to harm myself. But I just didn't understand what I was going through until I was an adult, and sought my own professional help as an adult to find out that, hey man, you're a little fucked up in the head. I joke about that. I obviously I don't mean it. That's just me picking on myself. Yeah. So I now know the truth, and I now know like how to better myself. How to take care of this when it happens. I can feel the low, a mile away, and when it and as I start to slip into it, I'm like, this is gonna suck for the next week or two or more. And thank goodness, dude, I do take medication in order to help, but that's not enough. That only does a portion of it. The other, you got to meet yourself in the middle with that medication, as well as, dealing with your problems and your emotions and stuff like that, and not absolutely self-regulation. And I don't bottle things up anymore, because that's what led me into my addiction. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I didn't know how to take a self-care routine. What was that up until about 4 years ago, when I first got into recovery. And now I know what those things are, and I practice them on a daily basis. Like, I make sure that I am number one, because I have to be. I can't be a good friend, I can't be a good father, I can't be a good partner, I can't be a good employee without my recovery. So that has to come first. And part of taking care of my recovery is taking care of my mental disorders, and making sure that I'm on top of those things, and I am dealing with emotions and stuff like that when they arise. What do you think about that, Grim?
No, absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely.
You can't. You have to, first and foremost. I do believe in helping others, even if that helps yourself. It's okay to help others for selfish reasons. Especially if it betters your own mental health. Because you have to be your priority. You have to. Sometimes it's okay to, be like, hey, look, man, I really want to be here for you, but right now I don't have the capacity or the energy to share what you need right now. Give me a beat. Let me take a second and collect myself, or I promise I'll get back to you, and then follow through. But there's nothing wrong with that. You're not dismissing someone by saying, I don't have the time, energy, or space at the moment, but I will here or there, you know, and then follow through. That's not dismissing, so that's acknowledging both them and yourself. You have to take care of yourself first, because you can't help anyone else if you don't take care of yourself. You know, at least to the capacity that would constitute health. You know, a healthy amount. Like, you have to be aware of that, conscious of that. You have to be active about that. But no, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, sorry, but yeah, no, I think that's a healthy way to go about it. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, mild distraction off that. But yeah, what are we at? We're at 25 minutes. We got time. Let's see. Focus.
All right, while he's getting this train of thought, no, we'll start wrapping it up here, you know, and last little thoughts on this. I just, you know, if you're struggling, especially with depression or any kind of mental disorders, or if you're struggling with your recovery, please reach out to us, you know, and please seek professional help. You know, you can't, yeah, and that's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I have a psychiatrist, I have a therapist, I have a home group in AA, I have a home group in NA. I surround myself with positive, influential people. And, you know, as much as I like, you know, being on top, I also understand what it's like to be on the bottom. And I am a huge advocate for mental health. So if you're struggling, you know, please reach out to someone that you trust, you know, or a professional that can't really spill your secrets.
And if you don't know what resources are available to you, you don't have access to, you know, you don't know what your options are with that, because I'm very pro what works, you know. You can reach out.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a resource that we can share with you, we will. That's what we're not medical professionals. We cannot tell you how to go about your own treatment, but we can tell you what your options are available to you.
And I am not ashamed of begging you to get help. Please, you know, it means a lot to me that, you know, especially in America, we struggle, and I'm sure there's problems all over the world, you know, with mental health disorders, but unfortunately here in America, we're kind of in our own bubble. So, you know, I just hope that, you know, you take this to heart, and, you know, this either helps you or opens, you know, shines a light on what your next step or something like that. But you know, that's about enough out of me. I love you guys. I hope you take care, and I hope to hear from you soon. Grim?
Same thing, man. We give a shit about you. That's why we're here. If you need help, you need anything, reach out. Peace out.